like.
All right, we're gonna tell you a little bit about these here two caravans here. You know, good answer sheet. What's there?
Already got it.
The first of two Dodge Caravans came in because the transmission had screwball shift patterns. It wouldn't work right. I was gonna do this on driveline day, but I figured I'd do it late. Not only were some of the shifts erratic and delayed, there was no recognizable pattern, and sometimes it would shift just fine. So we ended up coming to go problem. And so they first took it to a transmission shop, and they advised him to have a new radiator installed because there was a bit of water mixed with the transmission fluid. It looks milky, see, when you do that. So that shop wasn't interested in doing the work on the transmission, nor were they interested in replacing the radiator. That particular shop doesn't do the rebuilds on these Chrysler transmissions or whatever.
So if the radiator cap is milky though, ain't that means you got a blown head gasket or blown?
Well, typically if there's oil getting in the
Crackhead or
water,
something.
it can actually be the transmission cooler is busted in the radiator. Won't always be a head gasket. You gotta make sure you know where it's coming from. But milky pink fluid, this was milk, the fluid in the transmission was milky, not the radiator. The radiator was fine. Now they were saying radiator, see the radiator on most vehicles has got the transmission cooler built into it. And this particular one though, the radiator was not where the transmission cooler was on this one. It had a factory external cooler, so that meant that it couldn't be a problem with the radiator. So where'd the water come from? That's kind of interesting. So I found myself wondering if they had gone through some high water. Maybe it came in the vent. You know, because transmission's got a vent. Rear end's got a vent, transmission's got a vent. When the oil gets warm and cold, the air's got to come and go, so they vent. If the vent stopped up, you wind up with blowing seals and stuff like that. So we yanked the 700 code, made the decision to do a full fluid exchange, and we did a filter change, and we also replaced this solenoid pack right here, which is pretty cool on those. All of those solenoids are on a little pack right in the front of the transaxle. You can just change it pretty easy. When you throw a solenoid pack and a couple of speed sensors on it, they're both on the same side of the transaxle. It's pretty easy to do, little plastic sensors and all. A lot of times you can tune your transmission up that way as far as electronics go. Anyway, we replaced all that. There was a little glitter in the pan and some fuzz on the magnet, but that's not unusual with 150,000 miles on the clock. But after replacing the transmission fluid, the filter, and the shift solenoid, the code was gone and the transmission shifted just fine. No problem with that. Well, I posted this in this motor reading magazine. And I published, I wrote an article about it, put it in there. And some expert, transmission expert, sent me this email about our repairs. He said, everything is, you know, done wrong on this job. You're always supposed to rebuild the transmission if it even gets a teaspoon of water in it and all that kind of stuff. Well, my answer, after I checked with the owner of the Caravan, because this was published like 3 months later, he said the transmission had been working just fine and she'd been driving into Montgomery twice a week. Proof's in the pudding. You know what I mean? If what you did fixed it, and they ain't having more trouble with it, why complain? As far as I know, they're still driving it. Well, a little engine vibration. You can feel it in the car body. You ever feel engine vibration in the car body? All right. Little car had an NVH concern, that's noise vibration harshness. The customer could feel the engine shaking, the car was idling. Found a rock wedged in the motor mount. It was supposed to, that rubber was supposed to isolate the movement of the engine from the car, but that rock was wedged in there. What we found when we inspected the engine mounts. Got that out of there, everything's good. Another one came in with a complaint, it was running hot in traffic. So we tested the fan. I could either test light, hot, go to the one going to the fan, turn the fan through. That's what I wanted y'all to do on the Chevy Cruze, but somebody dropped the ball. All right.
No,
So,
you didn't tell me that.
yeah, well, I think it was low on coolant, and that was one of the reasons. So, anyway, the fan was wide open, so this is what we found when we unplugged the fan. It's all cooked and burned out of there. Fan pulled a lot of amps, and it's going to do stuff like that to the fuses and the relays and the fan connectors and all that. It was this high mileage Ford 15 passenger van, didn't quite drive right. The customer said it was all over the road. And the owner decided to have a couple of new tires installed on the rear and move the worn but still good tires to the front, which was a bad idea. In this case, you're always supposed to put the new tires on the rear, don't get me wrong, but the tires he put on here were some soft tires. The tires he put on there weren't nice firm. The rubber can be softer on some tires than others, and basically it was making it sort of feel like it was doing this because of the, you know, it felt strange when you're driving because the rubber was too soft on the tires. And there was a 2002 Crown Victoria that came in with the same complaint as all over the road. And you probably wouldn't have experienced this other thing, except that it was a van that was kind of top heavy, and they usually have it pretty heavy loaded. But this same car come in with complaints of a puffing noise and a brake squeak a couple of weeks earlier, and we hadn't noticed any all over the road issues with that one. But as I drove it this time, I could tell the front end was kind of tight. if you turn it and it don't want to return, you know, you got issues with that. So that wasn't actually, you know, wasn't actually all over the road, but it felt like it was. That's how they described it. So I figured that little stiff steering must be talking about. So on the lift, with the front wheels clear of the ground, I turned the steering wheel. The front end was a lot stiffer than normal. Without the engine running, you turn the steering wheel and you can tell it's real stiff. Okay? Alright, so we put ball joints, sway bar links, and careful alignment. Now that was straightened out. Caravan number 2 had a rattling noise that was coming from the belt area. Seemed to be tied to changes in engine speed. Things would seem normal till the engine was mildly accelerated, and then the noise would come and go abruptly with changes in engine speed, and then there was a rattling noise. It was really an ugly rattling noise. Alright, my initial thought, having heard similar noises before, was an overrunning pulley. These alternator overrunning pulleys have a tendency to come apart on the inside and make a bunch of funky noise. They cost about $70 for a replacement pulley. And so that's what they look like on the inside. If you cut that pulley off, you got springs in there, and they're taking natural, spring naturally has a tendency to tighten up one way and release the other way, you know. And that was basically how this pulley was set up. And we hadn't seen these things come apart on the inside. The springs would break and all, and they just make their nasty noises and all that. We've seen a lot of those. But anyway, we pull the alternator, pull that round cover off, the cover seal that 17mm Allen socket, and use that homemade tool. I use the bolt heat raised into an old socket, you know, like a 17mm head bolt raised into a socket. Spun it off. Of course, there's a tool that will come with them sometimes. They got now. When I felt the relationship between the pulley and the hub, you can usually tell when one's bad. This one here didn't seem to be faulty. I said, well, we misfired on this one, so we put that one back on. The whole inspection had taken place with the van flat on the ground. We had never raised it up. So we put it on the lift, pulled the right front tire, and I found the problem. That little water pump flange, 3 arms and a bolt hole, it was broke. See how that little water pump flange was broke right there? I got a laser in there somewhere. And don't know how common this has been, but I had never seen it before. It took less than an hour to change the pump. Now the reason they make it like that is because you won't get that pump out of there on that Dodge Caravan unless you take these bolts out and turn that and move it back onto, you know, closer to the water pump. And you know, you got to work it off of there like that. Basically, it's a peculiar thing. You'd have to have done one of those. But you know, when you look at it, you're thinking, there's no way that water pump's coming out of there with that pulley on there. Well,
where's your favorite student at, Mike?
Huh?
Where's your favorite student at?
I have no clue. All right. Now, every busy wrench twister stumbled into situations made it better, stronger, faster, and more capable. Right? Is that right? Right. It always helps to tell other mechanics about your experience. Somebody asked me for advice, or you know, you tell me to, you know, tell them what to do or which direction to go and all this. I usually tell them, you know, this is what you do, and do this, that, and the other, and just try to give them really good advice. Because every time you explain something, you get a little smarter. Sometimes I'll tell you when I'm explaining the principles in here, I said, find somebody that will listen to you when you explain it to them, and you'll get where you understand it even better than you do. You know, so, or if you're explaining it to another student, or if you're helping them and saying, this is the way this works, you're having to basically process all that information, and you're having to, you know, spit it out in words. All right, look and see. I spoke to another veteran technician that fixed the Pontiac that had been everywhere for an overheating problem. He figured it out when a driver pulled a car up to where he was standing. Somebody had installed the aftermarket fan and hooked the wires up backwards. You know what happens with those fans? They come a lot of times with no connector. The aftermarket fan does. They just have wires dangling. You're supposed to hook them up. If you hook them up backwards, it'll blow into the radiator instead of pulling it. You can see how that make it run hot, right? Especially going down the road and all that. So he noticed the movement of dust on the ground and figured out the fan was pushing air into the radiator instead of pulling it. Happens all the time. There's this lady out here that pulled up on her little trailblazer, just like yours, except it was red. She came walking in here. She said, I never seen her before. And she was a cosmetology student. She came here and she said, my vehicle won't start. So I went out here and, you know, pulled the code and it said crank sensor. And I spun it over and didn't see a crank sensor activity. And I said, well, let's see what we can do about that. So they brought a $16 crank sensor from the Parks house, and you can stand flat-footed and reach down there and change it, you know, by the fender. And then popped another crank sensor and, she paid for the crank sensor when they brought it. She was on her way. It didn't take 20 minutes to fix it, you know. But anyway, the customer had been beat up and overcharged by other mechanics. He thought I was some kind of Superman, you know, because I didn't say, we don't know what's wrong, but we think it'll be $1,000, you know, this kind of thing. You hear that kind of stuff. The next problem, she has not smack us around, but some jobs are just harder to figure out than others. Once a farmer dropped his truck off at the dealership, he handed a blank check to the cashier and said, my truck's skipping, I want it fixed. You know how scary it is to do that at dealership? Well, they gave me the ticket, and I found one bad sparkling wire. And that's all I changed, because I wanted that guy to come back, I don't even trust us, you know what I mean? He was probably surprised that his bill wasn't $888 or something when he came back and all that. But I always like to fix the thing surgically. Now, you need to go look a little farther, make sure there's nothing that's gonna break down on you later, as much as you can tell. What kind of concern can be caused by this? Anybody see a problem here?
Throw it away. Throw it away. Get a new truck.
Huh?
Well, your gaps, your old gap, your rings.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get you to notice. The gap's stacked on those rings. It's supposed to be on opposite sides of the piston. You're gonna have a compression loss there. Right? All right, test question 1. You ready? An engine sludge can bring about oil starvation that leads to bearing failure and it can be caused by what?
Wait, hold on.
A fully operating PCV system.
This is the answer to your own test, Charles.
I don't see it anywhere.
Charles is an auditory learner. He has to hear himself say stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
Charles? Shut up.
Well, I can trust your answer.
Well, I didn't get it wrong, but it is right.
EGR system failure can cause what? Now, EGR is exhaust gas recirculation. That's not anything race car drivers have to worry about. They don't have EGR on their car.
I don't have
Don't need
EGR
one.
on either. Mine's straight color intake.
I think yours came out before EGR was even thought of. That's such an old vehicle. I'm kidding. We're gonna go over these, and y'all are gonna know the answers when we're done. Technicians have been led by diagnostic trouble codes to investigate fuel trim numbers that are as follows. Short fuel trims at 0, long fuel trims at 27%. The fuel filter may be restricted, the crankcase oil may be contaminated with fuel, the fuel pressure may be low, any of the above. Now, to begin with, you gotta know what this means, what your long fuel trim actually means, what's the reason for it to have, you know, what can make it do this. If you don't know the answer, just guess at it, and we'll make sure you do know the answer by the time the test is over with. If an engine is knocking due to rod bearing failure, this could be due to what? Rust clogged injectors, plugged DGR passages, broken oil pump relief valve, spring or stuck valve, relief valve, any of the above.
I don't like that any of the above. That makes me think against all the others. Oh. It's like maybe it can be all of them.
Yeah, I know, that's supposed to trip you up. Do you get tripped up easy?
Yes.
All right then. Technician A says an engine oil pump is a positive displacement pump. Technician B says all engine oil pumps turn at half crankshaft speed. Who's correct by that? These are some engine repair questions, aren't they?
I just did that on late too this morning, I cannot remember for that.
Yeah. I'm reading
Technician A says a bad radiator cap can cause rust and corrosion buildup in a car's cooling system. Technician B says a larger pipe on the heater core is generally the heater core's inlet pipe.
Nope.
Charles?
Really? All I said was,
Charles, are you a bean spiller?
huh?
Did you spill the beans?
No.
It's like on them detective shows, he dropped a dime on there. All right, Technician A says most cooling systems call for a 50-50 mix of coolant and still water. Technician B says water pumps driven by the back surface of the serpentine belt and a water pump driven by the engine timing belt generally spin in opposite directions. Technician A says the injector firing frequency is directly tied to crankshaft sensor input. Technician B says on an engine with a crankshaft sensor and a distributor, improper distributor rotor alignment can be corrected by adjusting the ignition timing. That's a screwball question, isn't it? Technicians investigating a no start condition on a vehicle with the following PID values. Now, this is intake air temperature, this is engine coolant temperature, this is barometric pressure, transmission oil temperature, throttle position, and battery volts. What's the most likely reason for the no start? If you take an ASE test, particularly advanced engine performance, you will see questions like this, where you have to sort out those PIDs.
Anthony, communications.
Oh, he must be
$42 inside door handle on a 2005 Nissan Sentra has been replaced for a quoted labor price of $350. Technician A says the labor price is appropriate because there's a skill level required to do the job. Technician B says parts and service providers should set their prices based on whatever they know the customer is willing to pay.
Both.
All right, let's back up. We're gonna back up and go through the questions again. We're gonna go through them again, we're gonna give you the answers. All right. Frequent short drives that don't allow the engine to warm up, that'll sludge the engine up. You're making a gallon of water for every gallon of fuel you burn, some of it goes by the piston ring, gets in there, mixes with the oil, makes sludge, unless you let it run long enough for the PCV system to purge all that out of there. Bad thermostat can cause it, because it will cause the engine sometimes to run too cold. Usually bad thermostats nowadays cause the engine to run too cold rather than too hot. Back in the day, Tim might remember this, if they would stick and make it run too hot, most of the time now they stick and make it run too cold. Or they, have other things go wrong. Poorly operated PCV systems can cause it too. Any of those can cause
Got
it.
that right.
Any of those
Oh,
can
that's
cause it. Oh, you were just making it up as you go. Were you guessing?
No.
All right. EGR system failures can cause higher temperature, solar combustion chamber temperature, because it's supposed to recirculate exhaust gas, it's inert gas. It's supposed to cool the combustion chamber a little bit so it doesn't reach 2,500 degrees, so it doesn't make oxides of nitrogen. Pinging and detonation, yep. Higher NOx emissions, yep. Any of the above. That's in any of the above.
I feel like that
If you did that on every time you said any of the above, there are some questions you will get wrong with this test. Technician has been led by diagnostic trouble codes to investigate this. So, could this be a restricted fuel filter?
What?
Could this be a restricted fuel filter?
Yes.
Yes.
Could it be crankcase oil may be
Could it be
contaminated with fuel?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
That would be minus 27.
So no.
Fuel pressure may be low.
No.
No.
Is it A?
Says A.
That
I will tell you this is a screwy question the way it's written. It could be A or C,
Yeah, pretty much.
but not B.
So
If it had low fuel pressure, it would add fuel. If the fuel filter was restricted,
Yeah,
it probably wouldn't have 27 unless you're driving wide open throttle pulling the trailer all the time. So the best answer would probably be C, because a restricted fuel filter is gonna only cause it to have low, it's gonna have low oxygen sensor readings whenever you're into it heavy.
So it's wrong or right?
So,
Is A wrong or right?
If you put D, you got it wrong. If you put C, you got it right. A would be wrong, I think. Although I could probably argue for A, but at this one right here is the best answer. And a lot of times you're shooting for the best answer, right? If an engine's not gonna do the rod bearing failure, would rust clogged injectors do that?
No.
Or would plugged EGR passages do that? No. What about a broken relief valve spring in the oil pump?
Yes.
Struck relief valve, that would do it, because you wouldn't have enough oil pressure. Engine oil pump is a positive displacement pump, that is true. It's a positive displacement pump, but you won't have any pressure unless you have a relief valve that's being pushed out of the way by the oil pressure. And technician B says all engine oil pumps run at half crankshaft speed. Who's correct? Anytime you see a question that's got all or always or never, that's a red flag. All right. So basically, the only time they're going to turn at half crankshaft speed is when they're driven by the camshaft. But a growing number of oil pumps now, like the one on your Trailblazer, is driven around, it's on the nose of the crank. So it's driven at crankshaft speed, huh?
Is it A?
Yes.
Let's see. It's positive displacement, yeah. So the other guy got it wrong. Technician A says a bad radiator cap can cause rust and corrosion build up in the car cooling system. It can. If it's letting the air come and go, it can actually start it rusting in there. Now, there's a large pipe on the heater core. The heater core's inlet pipe, yes or no? No, that's the
No,
outlet.
but they,
She said because she wasn't sure. Can you see Caleb? She
this
went.
guy answered.
She went. All right.
I didn't check the info.
Technician A says most cooling systems call for a 50-50 mix of coolant and distilled water. That's true. Most of them. Technician B says water pump driven by the back surface of the serpentine belt. All right. What if this water pump is driven by the back surface of the serpentine belt? Which way is it going to turn? If the engine turns
Same way.
counterclockwise, it'll turn backwards. Right? But the timing belt, if it's driven by the timing belt, a lot of them are nowadays, it's going to turn in the same direction as the engine, right? Unless it's driven by the back of the timing belt, that never happens.
So A is on it.
A is correct. Well, no, all of both of these guys are right.
Okay, that's what I had.
Correct.
Good.
Yeah, both of them are right. Ejector firing frequency is directly tied to crankshaft sensor input. That is true. The faster the engine turns, the faster the ejectors click. Now, how long they stay open when they open is modified by load and temperature and that kind of thing. Technician B says on an engine with a crankshaft sensor and a distributor, like a Jeep, like that Jeep you're working, well, that one ain't got a distributor, or does it? That 96 Cherokee?
It's a straight six.
I think it does. I think it does, yeah, because later on they went with that coil rail and all that. But anyway, the long and the short of it is, on this one here, when you turn the distributor, all you're changing motor alignment, you're not changing timing because it's got a crank sensor. Now, here's a caveat, and this question doesn't include it, but like a 2001 Xterra has got a crank sensor. You remember the one we worked on for that bus driver lady? It's got a crank sensor that has nothing to do with firing the ignition. All it's got to do is misfire detection. So you can unplug the crank sensor on them, drive that sucker away. But you also adjust the timing by turning the distributor. That was a more for that, okay? All right, but anyway, rotor alignment can be corrected by adjusting ignition time. No, but you can turn the distributor and change rotor alignment, you're just not changing ignition
So
time.
A is wrong.
So, hey, have investigate the no start. Somebody come up with a good answer on this one?
Power resistance.
Huh?
Power resistance.
Problem is, sensor.
Yeah.
Where are you coming up with that?
C.
I threw one on the guard.
C.
Huh?
C.
An open IET sensor circuit. Oh my goodness, look at there. And how did you figure that out?
I'll put it 100-something degrees.
You know, the plan of instruction says list, define, explain. You know, what do you got? Did you just guess at it because it didn't match the other two?
No. I
Huh?
don't know. I knew it was that one, but I can't tell you why I knew it was that one.
Probably because we talked about it in engine performance when you were in here before.
Yeah.
You'd seen this before, but you didn't remember it. Well, that means that I need to, wet noodle and go after you.
Well, I don't know what you were
Yeah.
looking
What's going on, if you got 3 temperature sensors you're looking at in the vehicle, been sitting there all night, and one of them is reading a screwy reading on your enhanced room, you got a OBD2 room and you got an enhanced room. If you looked at this same vehicle in the OBD2 room, this would say 40 below zero, which means it's disconnected or burned out or wires cut or something like that. $42. This right here is Hodgepodge. This lady took her vehicle to a Nissan dealer somewhere. I'm not gonna say where it was, but anyway, they wanted $350 to change the door handle, and she said, "No, just sell me the door handle. I haven't done somewhere else." They said, "Well, we'll give you a discount on the labor." And she said, "No, I just want to buy the door panel." So she came over here, and one of my people that had never even done it put it on 20 minutes. I don't know where that $350 came from. But anyway. All right, who made 100?
What's the answer to that one?
Oh, the answer to that one is neither one is right.
Neither
These guys are
one.
both a bunch of yo-yos. You don't ever set your bills based on what the customer's willing to pay, okay? And I had one rep from a parts house company that came and I was saying, why were you guys wanting to charge me $400 for a clutch kit for this Chevrolet, whatever it was? I can't remember what it was. This has been years ago. And he says, well, I don't know. Why did you think it was high? And I said, well, I bought one from the Chevrolet place for $150. And you're trying to sell them for $400 and you're the parts store? What's wrong with this picture, right? You expect the dealer to be higher? Always check with the dealer. Sometimes the price is less at the dealer than it is at the parts store. I mean, you wouldn't think it, but about 50% of the time, you'll be surprised that the dealer is real reasonable. Well, anyway, he says, well, we just usually charge whatever the market can bear. I don't know what in the world that's supposed to mean, you know what I mean? If they'll pay it, we'll charge it, right? Anybody got any questions? Who made 100? Who missed every single question?
I got
I'm
30.
36.
Huh?
I missed 3.
I got 3 right.
You got three
I
right.
got 3 right.
Now, let me ask you this, are you coming out of this knowing stuff you didn't know when you came into it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what the whole purpose is, you know what I mean?
We want to do this.
Everybody gets 100 on this test,
Really?
except for,
I made 100.
except for whoever wasn't here, they could have been here.
Who wasn't here?
Michael?
Oh, where's he at? You want some chocolate?
Why didn't you ask that?